G'day, mate. Whilst we're all talking about the things that are going to happen when we hit level 70 and all the exciting post-game content that TBC will most certainly bring as Patricia hammers away on her warlock next to me, we don't spend enough time talking about the things that will happen before we hit 70. And there's quite the journey involved once TBC rolls around, once we go through Outland in crawling from 60 to 70. Granted, it's not quite the, 150, 200 plus hour adventure it was from 1 to 60, but it's going to be interesting to see what the classic community has to say about how TBC content rolls out in 2020. So I've got two people on the line to kind of give some predictions and maybe tips on what might happen once the Dark Portal opens to all of us. So I've called back two excellent guests from that first episode of the show. Naismith, how are you, man?
Doing pretty good, thanks. I'm just leveling a warlock too, so having a lot of fun.
Oh, very good. Yes, my lovely wife is sitting on my right now, angrily hammering away on her keyboard as she goes through the Wailing Caverns for the first time in her life, but she's not in the Wailing Cavern. She's out. Oh, now she's in the instance being taken through by a higher level character, cheesing it a bit. That's cheating. But anyway, we're also joined by Booth. How are you, mate?
Hey, I'm good, thanks.
Good to have you, man. Good to have you. And you've been riding along shotgun in Twitch chat for the first call of this episode. So I'm glad to have you here in person, so to speak. And guys, let's kick off and just start on a bunch of questions that I've got as the scrub that I am for what's going to happen in TBC, because so many people are throwing around all these different tips to other players about, no, you don't want to be in fucking Hellfire Peninsula. You don't want to be in Zangarmarsh. You want to go straight to the instances. Trust me, just spam Hellfire Citadel or this or that or whatever the fuck it is, and don't be out in the open world. You'll thank me later. And then other people are saying, no, fucking don't listen to that idiot. Run to Zangarmarsh straight away. That'll be your saving grace. And then you can just blitz everything and get to 71st and then control the server's economy when you get first access to all the nodes. And then there's other people saying, mate, you want the real galaxy brain tip? Fucking don't even go to Outlands. Just go to a few level 60 dungeons, get your first couple of levels there and you'll be laughing, or stack up on level 60 quests, hand them in for your head start. And either way, there's all these different theories. So I'm going to open it up to either one of you two to jump in first and just say, of all the things you've heard, do you feel that there's one particular piece of advice, if you want to get to 70 as quickly as possible, that is clearly the winner, or they're all kind of viable?
I hate to just be wishy-washy about it, but it's gonna depend on your server. If you are on a PvP server that has even remotely proportional populations, Hellfire Citadel or Hellfire Peninsula is going to be a shit show. Now, it might be really fun, but it's not going to be quick leveling because you are thrown against each other at several different quest hubs, and it's it can be really messy.
Well, let's talk about Hellfire a little bit more now that we've gone into this little avenue first, because we all say that, Naismith. We all say Hellfire is going to be a shit show. It's going to be the worst. Oh, my God, you thought Phase 2 was bad. Wait till you see Hellfire when we all go through the Dark Portal. But no one really talks about, whether or not the question of why speaks for itself, and it somewhat does. But specifically, I think of questions like, well, I don't really remember. Was Hellfire Peninsula a particularly small zone? What kind of geography are we talking about? Where were the where was the placement of the Horde and Alliance hubs? I literally don't remember. Was the mob density particularly problematic on top of the fact that there's going to be 30,000 of us in there? What's layering going to do to all of this? So if I pushed you guys for a few more specifics, why exactly would you say Hellfire is going to be as bad as advertised?
You want to take this one, Booth?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, it's essentially all of the above. You share a lot of quest mobs, and, yeah, throughout the entire zone, you're very close. It depends whether Blizzard is going to allow fast mob respawning. What would you call it?
Dynamic respawn.
Dynamic respawning, that's it.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it depends how strongly they're going to enable that. If leveling is going to be viable at all, I think. Yeah, that's about it.
Are there a lot of kill quests in Hellfire?
There are a ton of kill quests, and the big thing is like your first, like you run through the portal and you get your flight to either Thrallmar or I think it's Honor Hold. Yeah, it's Honor Hold, and you have immediately about like 2 decent-sized quest chains from both quest hubs that just go to the same place, and that is everyone. Like, so imagine your say 5,000 person server. Like, you could have 1,000 people running around Hellfire Citadel Hellfire Peninsula in pretty much an area not much bigger than Zul'Farrak, or maybe even ZG.
When it comes, if they do a sharding system, they'll need at least 3 different shards for a 5,000 population server, and that's typically like a medium pop server in classic terms. There's just so few quest mobs that you can actually kill to get your quest items or kill counts.
So you're saying even sharding, layering to excess is not necessarily the answer?
Yeah, unless they go balls to the walls with layers, like, hello, welcome to 10 layers. And short of that, it's going to be awful, I think.
Well, do you guys remember what it was like back in the day? Because obviously this is well before we were doing layering or anything like that. It was just what would now be called a small server, or what was back then a regular server, going through the dark portal all at once. I mean, even back then it was a shit show. It would crash the servers and cause massive problems back then.
All right. My personal experience was I was one of those weirdos that got the game at midnight at my local Best Buy. God rest its soul. But for about 20 minutes, there was this really uneasy peace between the Horde and the Alliance. Then one rogue, I believe it was a undead rogue, ganked like 2 Alliance players, and it was a murder fest for the next hour and a half where people did not get anything done. It was a lot of fun, but like you didn't level. It was just you were trying to run away from the roving gangs that were like patrolling up and down the road right up to the Hellfire Citadel.
I'm picturing, and fuck, I hope I'm getting this reference right. Is it Helm's Deep when you've got like before they charge the walls, the kid or whatever that unlooses the one stray arrow and kills the orc, and they watch it drop dead, and then it's just fucking on.
I believe that is
not at all inaccurate. Like that is,
It's an old man. It's an old man. Yeah. That's right. Who fires the arrow?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm getting called out by Mike for my memory of Lord of the Rings, which is fair. All right. Well, if we then picture that we've got an exorbitantly larger crowd going through this time, obviously it could be either a shit show or a bit of fun to see what breaks out there. I'm sure we'll happily wait for all the videos that show up on YouTube of this is what happened on my server and the PvP shit fight that broke out of the dark portal. But once we're through, let's say things theoretically settle down or don't. I mean, how many days are we talking where you expect Hellfire to be a no-go zone?
Oh, for days. Like
basically the first week?
Yeah, probably a fair assessment. Because first you got the hardcore people; they're just going to be going through that portal, and then the less hardcore and the less hardcore, until you get to the casuals, and then they're going to get through the portal. And the thing about the casuals is they're going to be prey for all those fresh level 70s that don't care about the PvE. They just want to ruin people's days. So Hellfire Peninsula is just going to be awful, no matter who you are, for a week at least.
I can't really disagree. This is all based on if you're on a PvP server. Like, obviously.
PvE server, it's going to be pretty chill.
Like, PvE server, like, the issue you're going to have there is just tagging mobs. It might be like a little miniature version of the stupid AQ event where you're just like fighting constantly to tag the correct mob and stuff like that.
Hey, I mean, we'll get into obviously what you guys plan to do, but you know, it's funny where, call me mad, but a small part of me, for some reason, whether it's just being a fucking masochist or not, is somewhat okay with going through the shit fight and just being that dickhead that tries to go through the silly mob tagging process. And it's just like, oh, I'll get one eventually. And, you know, I'll do it as the game intended and just do my quests and be a good little boy, blah, blah, blah. Now, don't get me wrong. Everyone has a breaking point, and I'm sure that if I do elect to go down that path, it's not like I'll be stuck to it like glue, and I could, you know, eventually be swayed by it just being so horrible that you're not getting anywhere. But do you expect a lot of the casuals to still stick to their guns and go, no, fuck it, I'm going to try and do these kill quests and do the mob tagging? Yeah,
it'll still be possible, definitely. It'll be a bit cathartic, so you'll have to enjoy it. But yeah, it's entirely possible, especially on medium to lower pop realms. It'll suck a little bit, but if you enjoy questing, it'll be fine.
I think it like we've said multiple times already, it's going to depend on your server. But if you're like just getting, for lack of a better term, fucked over and over and over, and you just can't get the mob you want, if you're on a medium to high pop server, you're probably going to see advertisements. Hey, chain running Hellfire Citadel, chain running the first slave pens in Zangarmarsh. Like, you will have plenty of opportunities to get out of the trying, like the grind of trying to like compete with all the other people there.
Well, while we're still in the zone, let's pick up on that point as I congratulate my lovely wife for dinging 21 for the first time ever. Congratulations, honey. She's very happy. And I want to focus on Hellfire Citadel and the ramparts as well, and ask, you know, a lot of people are saying, well, here's alternative number one. Jump straight into the first instance that you come across in the game, being these Hellfire ones. Tell me, is that, I mean, is it just unequivocally, sorry, not even up for argument, absolutely viable? You will have no dramas in whatever gear you're in at level 60 to go straight to these instances and just start spamming away.
Yeah. I mean, Ramparts, Blood Furnace specifically is awful. No one should ever enter that instance unless they are after a specific piece of gear, because there is mobs that silence, blow up, stun. There's mines and rogues don't disarm the traps, and your wife, even as a very seasoned, Nax speed running player, you will wipe in Blood Furnace. Ramparts is nicer, especially if you've got good interrupts, but there are a couple of mobs which put Mortal Strike on you and they hit pretty hard, and there's a bleed from the wolves.
Ramparts is forgiving. Like, you can get through it pretty easily. On one of the private servers I was on that had like instant 60s or instant level 58. At level 58, it was pretty easy to get through it. But like Blood Furnace, you stay away from there. You just don't go there. Like, people very rarely even run that heroic, just because it's such a pain. Like, I would avoid that place like the plague.
So it's interesting, Booth, you say that about the Blood Furnace. Even in T3 full Nax gear, you're saying you still might struggle in that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, wow, okay.
There's just so many terrible mechanics there. Bombs, dynamite, silencers, the whole shebang. Like, if I was to go in there, it would be with 3 range classes, a holy prop paladin tank, and some strong healer which can dispel silence. So a priest or a paladin.
Okay. Now, I'm presuming if that same person in all of their tier 3 gear and again, we're talking about a smaller percentage of the population here, obviously.
Yep.
If they were to waltz into Citadel, that would be just a smashing through it with no drama whatsoever.
The ramparts? Yeah.
Sorry, the ramparts. What am I saying? Citadel. What is it 2 or 3 instances in the zone?
There are 3.
4 technically, but 3 dungeons.
3 dungeons, yeah. And then
so it's Blood Furnace, the ramparts, and what's the third one?
Shattered Halls, but that's a high level dungeon.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I keep saying the Citadel.
Well, Hellfire Citadel is actually the entire complex. So it's
right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm with you now. All right.
Hellfire Ramparts it's fairly short. Like, there's only 3 bosses. None of them are particularly hard, but there's some good density of trash, so you can get decent experience from it. The more important thing you get from it is the rep, because that's like, rep is one of the most important things in TBC, and it's something that you have to constantly worry about when you're just getting to be a fresh 70. Being able to just get into tier 5 at all, you have to have revered about, I think, 4 or 5 factions. So it's tough. So getting started on that early while you're leveling makes the experience go a lot better. It's more convenient. You'll spend less time grinding certain dungeons later, and it'll just make things go so much smoother.
Well, it's interesting, and the show will touch on this later on when we go through our full-on sort of rep talk. But, I am being told on that point, Naismith, from all the guides and the videos and the podcasts that I see, that effectively, hey, you're doing it wrong because the meta says that you should start spamming these dungeons ASAP for the reputation. And wait, I hope I'm getting this right, because they said do the quests later because it's harder to get the reputation later on, and the quests will be quite easy, and you can add up that reputation, pretty niftily through the questing process. So you flip things around and do the dungeons first and the questing later, even though you still have to spam dungeons later on for rep as well. I'm probably butchering this, but do you know what I mean, Naismith?
Yes, you got it pretty much correct. You got all the important parts correct. You do, if you want to be the most efficient about it, you run probably Hellfire Citadel dungeons, be it Ramparts or Blood Furnace if you're a sadist of some kind, and you run those until you get to Honored. Once you're Honored, the reputation you gain from those places drops to nothing. You get maybe 1 rep per kill, which is that you can't. 12,000 kills to get to Revered that's a high order. So what you do is you go from, if you want to go strictly by the meta, you go from Hellfire Citadel, you do all those, get your rep that you need, then you go to Zangarmarsh, you go to the Coilfang dungeons, get all those, because you can run, at that point you should be high enough level to do Underbog or Slave Pens. You do the same thing there, then you go to the Auchendoon, I think is how you pronounce it. I never really learned how to.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's right. That's how I would say it.
And then you do the exact same thing there for Lower City. You avoid Mana Tombs because that one gives you Consortium rep. So you probably stick to Auchenai Crypts and Set the Calls. Once you've done that, you can probably start stepping into Shadow Labs. You can from Shadow Labs, Shattered Halls, go get started on your Kara attunement, then hope you have enough gold, get your Flying Mountain, get started on the Tempest Keep dungeons. That is the full meta, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of dungeon. You would need a pretty devoted group, I think. Now some people are going to have that because of course they are, but yeah, I mean that's just the meta. If people want to try that, go for it, guys. It probably will be efficient.
Now, in saying that, appreciating that is the meta, and you've already alluded to the answer to what I'm about to ask, but what kind of pain am I setting myself up for if I elect to simply, if I do the whole, I'm going to play the way I want to play, fuck the meta, blah, 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 and I start questing first, and then I realize later on, oh shit, I need all this reputation. How many extra hours of bullshit have I set myself up for by ignoring this meta approach?
It depends on which faction you need. If it's Lower City, that means Shadow Labyrinth that you're going to run over and over. Shadow Labyrinth is not a particularly fun dungeon, but you get a ton of rep from it, and there's some pretty good stuff that drops in there. If it's like Thrallmaw or Honored Hold, you're going to be running Shattered Halls over and over and over. If you have a good Paladin tank, you can bang that out really quickly, though. You can do Shattered Halls in about 30 minutes, probably less. But you're just going to have to do probably 10, 15 runs of certain dungeons, like if you want to get the required rep all the way up, because a lot of people need Exalted for the gear. So you will have, like, there will be groups doing rep runs, I would assume at least.
Oh, definitely. The casters will want to be running that straight off the bat to get to Exalted, because that's an epic reward from the rep vendor.
Booth, if I can keep you going just on one last little tie-off on the Hellfire Peninsula as a zone generally. I mean, when we talk about what percentage of the player base you think might take the approach of simply diving straight into instances, is it the case where, you know, we saw so much of the dungeon spam when Classic came out, when everyone worked out what the meta was there and what was going on with how the experience worked, and we saw these 10-man raid groups start to get put together with spell cleave, melee cleave, all this bullshit, yada, 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 that we hadn't seen before. Knowing what we know of the Classic player base, what are you expecting Hellfire to actually look like in terms of, could it be the case that the majority of the players follow this meta and they're all in instances, and not that Hellfire becomes a ghost town by any means, but that it's a little less busy than we perhaps anticipated, because everyone just listens to podcasts like this or reads guides and goes, well, I just got told to go straight to the instance.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely the meta to be in the dungeons, but also, like, if you're playing WoW, you kind of like dungeons. You have to, more or less. So I can't imagine casuals will be like, oh, we're not going to be meta slayers, but we're going to do dungeons anyway. A lot of people will be in there just because they can be, not necessarily because it is the meta. That said, Ramparts is a rather uninspiring dungeon because it's very short, small, and it's one hallway, essentially. But when other dungeons open up, so Slave Pens, Manitombs, Arcanite Crypts, they are more interesting.
Okay. Naismith. Oh, sorry, go for it, mate.
I was going to say, I do think there might be a few times when I think maybe the population in WoW Classic, for the most part, is fairly well informed on, like, the meta. I mean, people, like, the biggest competition is who can do stuff the fastest, because it's not hard enough. So people know that, like, the best way to do things generally, like, people talk about it in trade and general chat, like, you get mocked if you're doing something else. But I think there might be a little less of a clusterfuck in Hellfire Peninsula than we thought. But the population is so high that I would say almost no matter what, it's going to be crowded as hell.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Naismith, let me keep you rolling there, because, you know, another alternative, let's call it alternative B, is, you know, forget going to the Hellfire instances. Get your ass straight to Zangarmarsh. You know, there's going to be fucking mobs aplenty. You can do the quest there, or, you know, if you're lucky, get up one level or something and then go do the instances in Zangarmarsh. Tell me about the pros and cons of maybe just bypassing Hellfire and running a beeline to Zangarmarsh.
I think if you're going to quest, that would be what I would do. Zangarmarsh, especially like the early quests, there are a ton of them. They're grouped right next to each other. If you're Horde, it's about a 30-second run from the neutral Cenarian Expedition quest hub to the Horde quest hub, and you don't have to ride an elevator like the Alliance does. So everything's right there. You will have an easy time finding stuff to like kill, like mobs to get rid of, like stuff to loot. It will probably be significantly less crowded. The one issue I would have with that is if you're going to try and like be one of the first to like have your professions maxed, that would be a little rough because I don't like a lot of the stuff that you have to like the gathering nodes. You have to have a higher skill level that you've gotten from Hellfire Citadel or from Hellfire Peninsula.
So just to call back to what we were just talking about, though, when we say go to Zangarmarsh, you're talking about questing, when before we said maybe wait on the questing and do the dungeons first. But are you questing in Zangarmarsh because you have to level up a little bit before you do the Zangarmarsh dungeons? Or is it, you can do a few quests and it doesn't really kill your reputation that much?
Well, not every quest that you do is going to affect your reputation with
of course,
like those
right.
factions. The Cenarian Expedition quests, I would avoid those until you are probably honored. But like all the ones that I cannot remember the name of the town, but like the first Horde quest hub in Zangarmarsh, like that doesn't give you Cenarian Expedition rep. In fact, I don't think it gives you rep with anyone that it would matter too much. So that's go do those if you just want a quest and you don't want to bother with the dungeon grind. You'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah. I believe Horde start at Cenarian Refuge as well as Alliance, but they quickly head off to Swamp Rat Post.
That's what it's called.
There you go. Booth, talk to me about these instances in Zangarmarsh because, people do start to talk about how much trouble you might have here at certain levels. If I did elect for some reason to dive straight into a Zangarmarsh instance at level 60, bypassing Hellfire Peninsula, am I going to have a bad time, or is there maybe one instance that, you can pull it off with the right group?
The Slave Pens is an excellent instance to start off with. It has level 62 mobs from memory. I've actually been running it the last couple of days by myself to get some rough times about how long it would take to clear it and all that. But essentially, if you have some level of raid gear from vanilla, you'll do fine in there. You may have to avoid the bosses for a bit because they're level 64, but other than that, it should be fine. Underbog is a very, I wouldn't say difficult dungeon, but there's a lot of mechanics in there. It would probably punish newer groups.
All right. Naismith, anything on the Zangarmarsh instances?
They're pretty fun, and they actually have like a creative look to most of them. Slave Pens actually has like you can use creative like uses of the terrain to get through a lot of stuff quickly. There are certain like jumps you can do in there to like avoid like 30% of the trash. Like it's fun. Like it's a cool looking place. I like it a lot more than I'd like Hellfire Citadel.
Now, guys, I'm going to move on to Alternative C. And again, we're just talking about the first few levels here. We're not sort of talking all the way to 70 necessarily, but Alternative C is something that's come up in terms of staying away from Outland and actually getting a little bit of your experience, or perhaps a lot, in the Eastern Kingdoms or in Azeroth, or Kalimdor, I should say, sorry. Now, things that are being floated around really range quite broadly from having your quest log all stacked up and good to go with undone level 60 quests so that, at least you get a little, it might not be much, but it's a little bit of a head start. But then you get other things like either spamming dungeons, level 60 dungeons with the group for a level or something like that. I don't know if that's going to work very well. Or mages, doing their thing, AoE pulling in fucking level 60 areas in the old world, if you'll call it that. But another one that raised my eyebrow is, as Farq's just pointed out in Twitch chat, He says something largely absent in the original TBC was mass quest turn-ins before reaching Outland, which we just discussed. But AQ boss turn-ins net either 6,600 or 3,300 per turn-in. That means just 151 would largely net you the first level. So just focusing on everything I've just said there before we get to the rest of FAQ's points, tell me what you guys think about this, old world option of leveling, if any of it's going to be a thing.
That is good. Booth is right. First of all, the experience you get the best place for experience is Stratholme. That is still slower than Ramparts, significantly. But as to the turn-ins, that might be a thing, but that's going to depend completely on what patch we get. Because if we just get 2.4.3, that's not the experience rewards from those quests is gone. It's the same with for the AQ boss turn-ins and the coin turn-ins and the Bijou turn-ins.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the coin turn-ins soon for sure.
Because I know I saw math somewhere on the Classic WoW TV subreddit.
You talk about it, man. I was going to bring it up, but you go nuts. It's crazy.
It's you would need 1,500 of each. Now, you can find them on. I'm on Stalag right now, it's a glorified PvE server. Because we have, I think, 30 Alliance players total. But here you can get ZG coins for 30 silver to 70 silver per. That's a pretty massive investment for something that might not work. So, I mean, if you want to stock up on them, go for it. I don't think it's going to work.
Booth, I'll throw it over to you, because if people are still scratching their heads wondering what the fuck we're talking about, there has been some pretty serious math going on some of the subreddits, as Naismith said, about just stocking up on ZG coins. And hey, if you head on over to see the trolls, they give you a little bit of experience when you hand in those coins. So you add it all up. Guess who's getting to 70 first? Or, is it 70? Or I think someone said they were getting all the way to 70. Isn't that right?
I think they did, but the math was iffy at best. I would
yeah.
But I've been wrong before, so I won't say for certain that you can't do it. But I would seriously doubt that.
Yeah,
considering I'm betting we're going to get 2.4.3, just with probably some buffed bosses, not quite pushovers. But again, that's just my opinion. I don't think that we're going to be able to do that, because otherwise, I really should have kept all those AQ boss turn-ins, I guess.
So, Booth, I'll ask you what you think of it, mate, but I guess the answer might be a short one. If Naismith's right, is it in 2.4.3, the ZG coins do not give you experience?
Not sure about that per se, but what I do know is that the XP rewarded for doing those repeatable quests it's not like a scripting or an issue like that. It's purely a database entry. It's does quest reward XP? And there's two ways to look at it. If Blizzard just plop Outlands on top of Classic, and so they don't mingle with the vanilla content, it could very well work. But if that is allowed to go ahead, you can imagine that the community is going to be like, I don't have 20,000 gold to drop on these coins. And they're just going to be like, Blizzard, you have to fix this. You can't allow this to go ahead. And they'll just wipe it. There's no way Blizzard will allow it to go ahead, even if it was something that did exist back in the day.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I was going to ask you, mate, can I get a preview of your reaction live on this call, or predictions for what the community might say when the world first 70 is someone who immediately hands in 1,500 or more ZG coins?
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see it because I like the drama, but I can't
Some
imagine.
men just want to watch the world burn.
Exactly.
Oh,
but I can't imagine Blizzard would ever allow such a thing to go ahead. It trivializes the entire questing experience in TBC.
the salt from that would be pretty glorious to
It
see.
would be out of control.
And there are definitely people that can afford 15,000 coins.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, thanks for humoring me on that one. But back to Outland, guys. And once we stretch beyond the first couple of zones, what are some of the predictions that you would have for how the leveling process will go for us? And I know that sounds like a silly question, but I'm saying, do you think that we'll start to see some form of loose TBC leveling meta form? Like people will absolutely gravitate towards one zone if they're dashing to 70. If everyone just fucking goes, oh mate, the places to be is Shadow Moon Valley or whatever, or PvP will turn rampant in one other particular zone, or any kind of outlandish predictions that you might have on our way to 70. What have you got?
I feel like there'll be a number of, like, Nagrand is a fan favorite, and people are just going to want to go there because of that. And it's going to actually be all right because it's a big enough zone and there's a lot of kill quests that are very spaced out.
Oh god, there are so many kill quests there.
Yeah.
That's where you get Hemet Nessingware and you get the Ring of Blood. So people will go there like crazy.
Also, an interesting note on the Ring of Blood, right? It requires you to kill the 5 mini-bosses, I think it is, in order. And, like, trying to do them in order without someone sniping the quest before you or Horde coming along to wipe you, like, you should just not do that quest, ever. Like, 3 months down the line, I don't think anyone will do that quest. It's just going to be awful. It's just going to be a beacon for, like, stealth rogues to just sit there and just gank you.
That I can see. I would say people will, because you go pretty much from Hellfire to Zangarmarsh to Terrakar, but then you have a choice. You can go to Nagrand or Blade's Edge Mountains. And the thing is, Blade's Edge Mountains is fucking horrible. Like, that place sucks.
Ooh, I mean, that's a contentious issue, I must say.
It's bleak as fuck. No, Booth, go into bat for Blade's Edge Mountains.
It's not a great zone, but it's not bad. It gets a really bad rap. And I was in the camp, right? I was like, I don't like this zone much. But I was swayed by a friend of mine, and he was like, yeah, it's not great, but it's very linear, and the Horde and Alliance questing areas are actually kind of segregated, so it's relatively safe.
It is safe. I will agree with that. And it's just because so many people avoid it.
I
don't go there unless I'm like level 70 and I desperately need like some Cenarian Expedition rep, or I just want gold. Just because it's some of the quests there are buggy and like they're kind of difficult to do. Like there's one that requires you to like kill a guy near a totem to hear a whisper, and it took me like 30 minutes to figure it out when I was leveling the first time. So I would avoid Blade's Edge Mountains just personally. And there's also like there's no dungeons there. Like it really is just like the path that you have to take to get to Netherstorm.
It's interesting you say that, Booth, because effectively what you're trying to tell us that beauty is more than skin deep with Blade's Edge Mountains, because while it's ugly as sin, it's actually a great place to level in because it's quite a linear and easy questing progression.
Yeah, pretty much. If you're the kind of person that just wants to quest, it's a great zone. And especially so because it's the first leveling zone where the rewards towards the end of the zone, which you blues, are actually just about the best in slot before raiding, if you're not already swimming in tier 3 gear from Classic, Vanilla. So yeah, the quest rewards are good as well.
Is there, this again might seem like a silly question, is there a particular zone, when I say this I think of places like the Elemental Plateau, which we've already designated is going to be, just an absolute joke of an area in TBC. But is there a particular zone that's like the Stranglethorn Vale in Classic that is just a PvP nightmare, or not really?
Nagrand as a whole, yeah, it's PvP central. I think you get a bit in Terrakar Forest, Shadowmoon Valley, and Netherstorm just because they're popular places to farm materials. But yeah, Nagrand is the hotspot. It is STV V2.
I would agree with that, especially because they have that. Is it Hala, the PvP,
Hala, yeah.
Which doesn't get a whole lot of attention, but sometimes people fight over it, and that can lead to, like, if you're just questioning the area and you roll Snake Eyes, that could, like, you could be in for a pretty rough time there.
Now, guys, what would if I had to, put you on the spot and say closest to the pin, what would your guess be as to when we're going to see our first level 70 after launch in TBC?
Within 48 hours.
Let me just do the math, because I've actually already done it.
All good, all good.
6, 3, 9.
Carry the 3.
About 36 to 40 hours.
36 to 40 hours. Is that played time or real time?
Playtime.
Playtime. Okay. There you go. So when we talk about, if we do see the first 70 come up, obviously within that time frame, which, absolutely sounds about right. Are we talking about the person who does that is absolutely going to have just done dungeons the whole time? Or do you think it'll be they've spanned dungeons for the first 5 levels to get away from the crowd, and then they mixed in a mixture of dungeons and questing?
Almost entirely dungeons. And see, there's 2 ways to think about it, right? Yeah, you might get to 70 the quickest, but you're not going to be ahead in the achievements, because the achievements require you to go off and quest and go down to Karazhan and pick up some other stuff. Like, if you want to get into Karazhan the quickest, you're not going to be the first person to level 70. So it depends how you want to go about it, really. But the fastest levelers per se is going to be the dungeon runners.
So when you say that, then Naismith, if I throw it over to you, it sounds like it's an interesting little wrinkle to TBC, because it's not going to be the class necessarily that can just go through the journey with their specific abilities and have the most control over what they do and speed level the best, like the mage did in Classic, the AoE thing. This just sounds like it's an equal opportunity employer, and someone who just sits down and gets the good group and grinds the dungeons is going to get there regardless of what class they are.
Yeah, if you have a good dungeon group, and that means, I would say, you have like a really good paladin tank, you can get through some dungeons really, really fast. Like, we've talked about it several times, but Hellfire Ramparts is not particularly hard. And if you're rocking T3 for, say, like 2 mages and a warlock, and with a shaman healer, you are just going to plow through that place if you have a good paladin tank.
All right, so would that be your dream team? If Naismith, let's say I was giving you the challenge, the $1 million challenge of getting to 70 first, and you were like, all right, how am I going to approach this? I actually want to win this money. I want the best 5-man team that I can put together. Would it be that 2 mages, warlock, shaman, paladin team, or would it be something slightly different? Could you rock that team through the whole of 60 to 70?
Maybe. If I was if I was going to try and compete for the world first, I would buy a shitload of cocaine, and then second, I would find a good group to dungeon with. I'd share said cocaine with them, because we're going to.
I was going to say, was the cocaine for before or after you get to 70?
We're going to need energy. That's pretty much it. Other than that, like, you want a good paladin tank, you want a good healer, you want a group that can AoE well, and not just like burst AoE. You want someone that can consistently AoE well. That's going to be mages early on, because warlocks don't get Seed of Corruption right away. They're not the best AoE class really until they get Seed of Corruption. Then they're strong as hell, but they're just going to be multi-dotting most of the time. Mages are better AoEers. They have, like, if you have unlimited food like mages give you, like, you can just plow through stuff like immediately.
There's probably some legal obligation for me here to jump in and say, public announcement, please do not consume mass amounts of cocaine during your trip to level 70. So, Booth, I'll throw it over to you. And whilst we let all the kids know that drugs are bad, tell me what your dream team of 5 is going to be if you wanted to win that $1 million and get to 70 first.
If we assume Alliance, because I am, and we don't get to level Shamans in any sort of pre-patch scenario, it would probably be a Paladin, Mage, hard to say, maybe a second Mage, and then maybe a Rogue, and then the healer could be anything really. Probably another Paladin or a Druid, let's say.
Okay. Druid just with their battle res.
Yeah, battle res, innovate, and Hots are pretty strong in dungeons, so I rate that.
Hots are great for dungeons.
Yeah, and that means you also get like the only thing you can't cover is a magic dispel, and there's not a whole lot of that in TBC dungeons. And if there is, the paladins are.
I like hearing Hots are good for dungeons because I'm leveling a Resto Druid now that I might want to tinker with some healing with in TBC. So I like hearing that. All right, guys, we'll wind this one up. I won't keep you all night, but once we are, we've talked about the journey to 70. Once we're there, tell me what, it would be silly not to ask. I'll ask each of you to go through it step by step, whether or not you're willing to share. I don't want you to give away any secrets if you think you've got something personal that nobody else knows about, but tell me your leveling plan and how you plan to efficiently get there as quickly as possible.
Well, I have I have a pretty good workplace, so I have some time off saved up, so I'm going to be taking probably about a week off. I have several friends that are, there's probably about 7 of us that are going to try and dungeon level as much as we can. But if we can't dungeon level, then I will quest. Like, there's no point in just sitting there, like, with your thumb up your ass waiting for a good dungeon group. Go out and do something. That's at least my plan for now. I like I said, I want to get like the reputations up as much as I can, but don't let just waiting for a dungeon group stop you from doing stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Booth, any super secret plans for you?
Not super secret. I think it's a fairly typical plan, but essentially I'm going to be starting off with slave pens up to roughly 66, I think it is. And then, 64. And then you switch over to Mana Tombs and Arcanite Crypts, which you do to 66. Then you go to Netherstorm. You do a bit of Nagrand to get to 67. 67, you do Netherstorm. You do the quest line to unlock the Tempest Keep dungeons, and then you head down to Karazhan to do the Karazhan achievements, and then you do whatever you want to get to level 70. So maybe Shadow Labs or something like that.
This might be a silly question, but just to end the call on this one, as Mike is pointing out in Twitch chat, he's saying, if you don't like dungeons, maybe TBC is not the expansion for you. And given what you just said, Booth, if we add on dungeon spamming to the leveling process, in addition to the dungeon spamming that's going to happen through the attunement process, do you guys get any kind of dungeon fatigue or just moments where once you ding 70, as much as you'd want to go and get all your gear, do you not have moments where you just go, fuck me, I just want to not see a dungeon for a little while?
Yeah. Well, you'll have a lot of people who have, 5,000 or 6,000 gold in their pocket ready to go for that flying mount. And they're just they're going to go straight to Elemental Plateau while everyone else catches up. And they're going to get those early motes of fire, motes of air, and then you're just going to make bank. So yeah, people who have dungeon fatigue, there's plenty of farming to do, don't worry. But no, definitely over the entire TBC, at least at the start, there is a lot of dungeon fatigue. Because, you do a lot.
There's a lot of dungeon grinding in TBC, but there's also a lot of daily grinds. That's one of the easiest ways that Blizzard added in TBC to make money is all the daily quests that you can do. It's 10 per day at first, but it does get raised to 25 towards the end. And that's how you unlock pretty much all like the interesting flying mounts, like the Nether Drake and the like the floating Nether Ray. I think the Skyguard one. Though if you don't want to farm dungeons, go ahead and farm those. There's plenty of stuff to farm. Booth was talking about how people are going to go to Elemental Plateau and get like the moats there. People are going to farm Shadow Moon Valley for Nightmare Vein like crazy because lots of classes need their flasks. And that's how you get because the Lotuses are no longer set spots. They're just random. There's a random chance to get one with any high level herb you pick. So people are going to be farming like crazy if they're like quick out the gate leveling, and that's a great way to make a lot of money. But again, you're gonna like that's pretty tough, and you're gonna need a epic flying mount for that.
Yeah. Well, just on that point, guys, sorry, you've done this to me. I was going to let you go, but then you said something interesting, and I have to keep you here for a little bit longer. But Booth raised the point of once you ding 70, maybe you'll head over to Elemental Plateau, and Naismith, you reinforce that. And we've talked about this already a few times on the show about this, thing that is going to be the Elemental Plateau in TBC in 2021. When we talk about the race to 70, are we really secretly talking about the race to the Elemental Plateau? Because granted, a lot of people are going to hit 70 within a pretty small time window in relation to one another. The world first 70 is going to have the world second, third, fourth, fifth 70, not far behind them. But then also on their own server, they're going to have other people hitting 70 really not that far behind, maybe a few hours we're talking here or what have you. But are we really talking about a race to get 5 to 10 hours alone at the Elemental Plateau? Or is it the case that, I don't know if this is a thing, I don't know what level the mobs are at the Elemental Plateau. Is it the case that you get to 68 and forget 70 and go straight to the plateau and start, just those few hours alone of farming there would be worth their weight in gold?
I don't...
Go ahead. Druids can get to there at 68 because they can get their flying form at 68. But yeah, everyone else has to wait till 70 unless you're using extra tools that aren't part of the WoW client. Which I honestly would not be surprised if people do that.
No, and I hate that we laugh about that, even though it's like we all know what we're talking about here. But yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised either, mate, if we saw it.
Yeah, people leveling in Elemental Plateau. I want to see it because it's madness.
Well, the thing,
Naismith.
The thing about TBC is, like getting your pre-raid bis in TBC is a lot about like who can get their like crafted gear the quickest, because crafted gear most of the time is going to be some of the best stuff you get, and that requires a lot of expensive mats, and you can get a lot of those at the Elemental Plateau. Which is one of the reasons why a lot of people will go there. But not everyone is going to be that focused on like building that, the Dragon Strike hammer that the enhancement shamans need, or the Lionheart swords that the arms warriors need. Or there's a lot of stuff that you need to farm for, and being able to get those resources quickly would be a really good reason to level like as fast as possible, because those resources are going to get snapped up, and they're just the prices are going to go through the roof like they always do. Like there is always a lot of money to be made at the start of any expansion in especially in TBC and like a couple of the other expansions.
There's also the matter of how Blizzard are going to deliver the content. So if we were to get a purely Blizz-like experience, Tier 5 would be released alongside Tier 4 at the start of TBC.
Hell, half of Tier 6 is released right
arguably
away.
Yeah, true. But the thing about the crafted gear is that it's essentially equivalent to Tier 5, more or less. So if they release Tier 5 on release, there could be an entire meta of just not farming. You would just go straight into the raids, and you go straight to tier 5. And by the time you would have otherwise crafted your Spellfire set, Shadow Weave set, whatever, you will have already outgeared that stuff, mostly. So there could be an entire meta of just not farming anything, which would be a bit crazy, to be honest, but
it's true.
It's entirely possible.
Depending on like how they release the raid content, like if they release it purely like they did in originally, that's like 60% of the bosses are available right at the drop, which is just like, personally, I don't think they can do that because that's just too much that'll be too much of a content drought for like the 2 years that they want to have it be active.
Yeah, definitely. I personally do hope they put tier 5 behind a phase. I don't want to burn out in TBC. It's too much to enjoy.
That'd be impossible, wouldn't it, mate?
Of course.
All right, guys. Look, I won't take up all your evenings or mornings. That is, Booth. It's beer o'clock for us, Booth.
1 o'clock. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it's about that time. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a lot of fun just talking about. I wanted to get this monkey off my back for a while, talking about just those 3 major alternatives that people have been discussing to the what we might call the natural leveling process. But it will be really interesting to see what happens when the Dark Portal opens up. So we'll see what the classic player base has to say about how we get to 70. But please, guys, do say your goodbyes. It's been great having you. Shout out anything you want to shout out. If you want to shout out your guild or anything you're working on, please do let us know. But Booth, it's a pleasure having you, mate.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's definitely fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to the mage in the future.
Oh, yes, that'll be a good one. We've got you signed up for that for sure. And Naismith, I think I've got your name down for something else as well. Let me double check. Yeah, you want to talk raiding when we get there, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Raid comp, bosses. TBC has several of my favorite bosses. Like, it's a great expansion.
Yeah.
Kael'thas.
I mean, you get some more in... Sorry. I was going to say, you get some more in Wrath, but it's those... orchestral fights, I'd like to call them, or symphonic fights, where it's like you're in a play. Essentially, it's not a raid encounter; it's a play, and it's so enjoyable.
That's true.
I love it.
Like Kael'thas is a personal favorite of mine. Which, I mean, that's not exactly that original. Even the Reliquary of Souls is this weird boss, but it's pretty fun in Black Temple. Personally, like all my favorite fights are either in Burning Crusade, Wrath, or of all things, Mists of Pandaria. So,
alrighty, well, mate, it's been nice having you, and I will definitely touch base when we get to that raiding call.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, cheers.